Grounding. It's an exercise that connects you energetically to the earth. It allows you to be more authentically in your body, in the present moment, and receive nourishing energy. Grounding allows your body to use all your talents and gifts, know their values in the world, and give birth to your vision and goals. Welcome to Grounding Journey. I'm Chris Greer. As a 40-something mom, business owner, yoga lover, and long-time spiritual seeker, I've been craving deeper conversations, the kind that arise from connections with other women who are on a similar journey. My purpose with Grounding Journey is to provide a space where we can have real, fulfilling, and sacred conversations. Welcome to today's episode of Grounding Journey. I'm so excited to start the new year. I'm excited to start a new realm of the podcast, and I'm super, super excited to have my friend Lisa Logan with me. I'm going to give you the formal introduction, and then we're going to get her to tell us who she really is. So one of the things I find neat is that Lisa was an occupational therapist for 23 years, and within the last 6 months, she made the jump like we're all trying to make. She's a Reiki healer, a light worker, and an entrepreneur, and she recently started her own business. She wanted something that embodies her passion for grounding and nature, especially rocks. And I'm such a crystal fan, rocks all over the place. So Lisa, I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
So tell us, I told them that you just recently made the jump, and that's super exciting. Tell us a little bit about what inspired you to, what you're doing, why you're doing it. Tell us whatever you want to, and then I'll ask you more questions.
Okay, sounds good. I would say, well, to answer who am I feel like I've been trying to figure that out for 45 years now. I feel like we all are. And I just read something on the internet that said, life isn't about finding about yourself. Life is about creating yourself.
Ooh.
I feel like I'm definitely in that creative journey right now. I took that leap of faith, and I just want to do something that's more authentic. I want to feel like my authentic self, which I'm a lot of things, but I would say a healer is the number one thing that I would identify with. And I'm a healer that doesn't want to be put in a box. I just want to be a healer. I want to build my, healing toolbox, so to speak, so that, I can just provide what somebody needs. I went to Sedona a couple years ago, and I had a session with a shaman, which was epic. And her passion was connecting with spirit and discovering what your true soul purpose was on this earth. And mine was releasing people from spiritual and emotional bondage.
Wow.
It completely resonated with me. I just want to free people. Whatever issue that's limiting them, I want to collect my skills and just use them all together and release them.
That is some powerful stuff.
Thank you. That's where I'm at the moment.
Everything you said, totally, I try to make notes of what to come back to talk about as we go along, and everything you said, I want to talk about deeper. So I love that you said you're stepping into your authentic self. And we're recording this in December, but we're releasing it in January. And I think it's so important because we have all had such an evolution in ourselves, whether it's changing jobs, whether it's changing relationships, whether it's just changing how we think and look at things. It can be simple or drastic. And you definitely took it to the drastic end. Now, when you left to do what you're doing now, let's talk about what you're doing now, because that way I don't just allude to it.
Right now, I am focusing on grounding because I see that as something that's really needed, especially in this world today. I feel like 2020 just shook the foundation away from everybody. So right now I'm designing beach stone mats for grounding and acupressure foot massage. They're pretty cool. They're fun to make, and it's the lead in to further my journey as a healer. So it's my first step into entrepreneurship, um, to get going with grounding and healing and get my own business going. And I have faith that it's going to lead me to where I need to be. I just have this gut feeling that I can trust in the universe, and it's going to guide me along the way.
I love that you say you're trusting your gut feeling, because I think so often we feel that purpose so deep inside of us, but we're nervous, we're self-doubting, we don't believe in ourselves. And so we don't always do what we're called to. And one of the things, a friend said it to me a long time ago, and I have it as a sticky note on my bulletin board. It says, if it's in you, it's for you. And
Absolutely.
I love that, because you're feeling it so deep inside. And for me, my journey comes to me through meditation. It's not something that I envision doing. It's just I meditate, it's there, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's what I'm supposed to be doing right now. And it's in those moments when we listen to our soul and we listen to what it's calling for, that we really find what we're supposed to do. And I love that life isn't about finding yourself, it's about creating yourself. Because I think we do say so often, I'm finding myself, I'm trying to find myself. But like I've never thought of it that way, as in creating yourself, because it's definitely for me right now. I'm feeling all this stuff. It's not, like I said, it's not what I envisioned or it was my goal. But now that I've seen so much of it through meditation and through my quiet time, I'm like, oh, okay, let's do that. And so what am I creating with myself? And I love that you're not only creating yourself, but you're also using your hands to create something that is how you touch others and how you help others. That's really cool.
Yeah, thank you. I have a creative side, so I have to validate all parts of myself. So, and I'm still discovering what that is, and it's hard to connect with that and really go where your gut is telling you to go, where your spirit is telling you to go, because a lot of times it scares the crap out of you. Like
Mm-hmm.
I knew what I was supposed to do, but it took me a long time to actually leave my job because I was scared to death.
Mm-hmm.
You really have to surrender to the universe and have that trust, and that's really hard to do. But it just became so strong, that feeling that there was something more that I needed to do. And I also feel like what's meant to be is going to be, and spirit will kick you in that direction one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
You might take different
Absolutely.
paths, but there is a higher purpose for you. And sometimes, like, my job just got so overwhelming that I hit that breaking point. Like, okay, I knew I had to do this, but something had to really kick me out of my comfort zone to actually be able to do it. I saw a meme the other day with a person in a wheelchair, and you're the person in the wheelchair, and your spirit guide is pushing you in the wheelchair and then dumps you off a cliff. So I feel like if they have to do that, they're going to push you to where you need to go.
I so strongly believe in that. I know that at points in my life, I needed a huge shift. And I've mentioned it before, I married my high school sweetheart and have divorced him 11 years ago. And I remember thinking, and I actually remember talking to my son about it. He was 11 at the time. His best friend's parents split up in July, and then my husband and I split up in November. So it was in that in between time of watching his parents go through their separation. I was so uncomfortable. It was so awful. And I remember saying to Kev, well, sometimes you just have to fight for what you really want. And I want my marriage to work out and I want it to be okay. So I'm willing to fight for it. And the thing is, if it's that uncomfortable and we're having to fight that hard, it's not right.
Right.
It's like you saying going off the cliff. That doesn't mean that life isn't challenging. Life is definitely challenging. But when you feel like you are fighting for it, you are
Mhm.
fighting the universe and the direction that it is calling you.
The flow.
Yes. And it's that was one of those moments. And I've actually over time apologized to my son because I'm done a lot of healing work and things are in a lot better place for me. I have an amazing husband. And there are definitely times that it's hard to be married or hard to be a mom or hard to do whatever, but it's never that I feel like I'm fighting to be a mom or fighting to be myself or fighting for my business. Like if you use that word analogy, or if you use that word as your analogy of fighting, then you really have to rethink it. So I love that meme. Like I need to find that meme because it sounds exactly like
In
what we
fighting,
do.
in flow, it's like you're going against the flow. So if you
Yes.
really feel like you're going against the flow, then you're not in the right river. And people sometimes describe me as just really zen and going with the flow. And I do go with the flow, but I also choose the river that I'm in.
Mm,
I think that's part of it. If you're going against the flow of this particular river, it's not the right river. So find another river that leads somewhere else where you can go with the flow. You might hit some turbulence, but like you're saying, that's you still know that you're in the right river. And we're supposed to hit these difficult times because that's how we grow. And we're supposed to be here on earth to see these challenges. And I always give people permission slips to be human.
mm.
You're supposed to screw up while you're here. That's the whole reason we're here. So we're not always supposed to make the right decisions, but as long as you're in the flow of that river, it's still leading you where you're supposed to go. Even if you jump out of the river, sometimes you still are on that path.
Well, and I think you're so right. When there's that turbulence, it's our up leveling. It's our
Yeah.
chance to learn and grow a little bit new in this life. And I have experienced for myself that I kind of go through this cycle, and it takes me about 3 years to do a full up level. And then I
Mm-hmm.
get to sit in this void. And I don't know if you've ever read Melody Beatty.
No, but I'll look for it.
She is amazing. She's kind of 12 step and she's definitely codependent work. And I've talked about her in other podcasts, but she does like a daily reader. And in the daily reader, one of them I remember, she talks about being in the void, that you've done a lot of work and now you just kind of get to pause and breathe through it and enjoy that space. Like you don't have to be like, oh, yay, look, I grew. You just get to breathe and
Yeah.
be, and then be like, oh, wow, cool. Look what I did. Like I
So the
up
void
leveled
is
so
a
much.
positive, happy space where you can actually sit in gratitude, it sounds like.
Yes. And it's so nice. I remember reading that. And then a couple months later, I was finishing my 3 year really up leveling cycle. And somebody asked me, like, what are you going to do next? Like, you've been doing so much work lately. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to void. Like, I'm going to just sit in
Love
my void and be and not try to grow and not try to reflect and
it.
just
So
be.
refreshing. Just to be able to sit and just enjoy all the work you've done, to look
Mm-hmm.
back and go, oh my gosh, what have I been through to get here? I've always said so many times, if you had asked me years ago, you told me years ago that I am where I am, I would never believe it.
Mm-hmm.
Be able to sit and just actually enjoy the progress you've made is rather than just reaching for the next step, the next step, the next step.
Yes,
Stand on the step for a minute and enjoy being there. So yeah, I love
absolutely. Well, and I think it's so poignant right now because, everybody's like, oh, 2020 has been horrible. 2020 has been so hard. Like New Year's Day, it's going to suddenly be different,
that. I know.
So it's
I'd like to
like,
think that, but
well, I have a guest who's coming up in a couple weeks, and one of her episodes that made me want to invite her as a guest is in October. She did an episode, and it was called 2020 is not over. Get out of the effing bucket. And I was like, oh my gosh, because everybody keeps saying, oh, 2021 is going to be better. No, Like it's not magically happen in November or just January 1st. So it's kind of like letting January, it's still going to be challenging, but let that be your void. Reflect back, just breathe and know, you're going to hit some more rapids, but you've got this.
Yeah, I love that. And January is the perfect time to do it. Winter's coming. It's time to reflect and come in, hibernate, so to speak. So yeah, I think January is the perfect time to do that. And then start off the new year with gratitude and peace.
Absolutely. Well, and I think like you and I are talking here about having gone through challenges, having felt our soul pull ourselves, push us over all these things. And I know for me, one of the ways, because I'm just finishing another 3-year cycle. And I went into this 3-year cycle knowing, oh crap, it's a 3-year cycle. Like it was very clearly defined to me because I went through one that started in 2010. And the thing that helped me with this really up-leveling couple of years for me was that I was grounded in it, that I was able to look at it. And 2010 was definitely my dark night of the soul. It was intense. It's when I divorced my high school sweetheart. I, went through everything of finding that point. I found myself. This 3-year cycle, I created myself.
Perfect.
But one of the things that I think made it so much, it didn't make it easier, but it made it worth it, is that I was like, okay, there's a point to this. There is an end to this. There is a reason that I'm experiencing it. And a lot of that comes from, I was grounded. I had my practices. I understood meditation. I was able to reflect back. And it sounds like you've really been working on that. But I think one of the things, some of our guests, our audience will definitely be like, yes, I get that. Like it makes sense. But there's also going to be our audience who's like, yeah, how do you do that? So let's talk about knowing that it's going to be okay through being grounded.
I think when someone is grounded, they're confident in themselves and they know that there's a bigger plan. So
Yes.
they know that when you're going through the tough times, it's for a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And some people, like myself, believe in pre-birth planning. So even to say to yourself, I know I chose this. There's a reason I'm going through this. There's a certain lesson that I'm supposed to learn. To stay grounded in that within yourself and just having that knowing can help you through, knowing that it's for a purpose. You're not going through all this tough stuff for no reason. You're gonna up level. So I think staying grounded in that, that's helped me through a lot of different things. And then just literally grounding to how to ground is to just touch your skin, your bare skin to the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And the times that I've been least grounded, when I first found out about what grounding was I live in Maine, so in the winter I just felt so scattered, like I had no solid foundation under my feet. And I realized it's because I never was touching the earth in the winter. I was inside. I was, whereas the summer, I am barefoot all the time. I'm in the sun. I'm out in nature. Um, and that's why I developed the tools for grounding so that your skin can actually touch the earth.
Mm-hmm.
So that you're not. And the other thing is a little bit off topic.
There's no off topic on these calls.
You can tell I'm passionate about grounding, and being grounded. One thing that worries me about being ungrounded is cyberspace. I feel like we're all so much in cyberspace right now. And when you're out there all over the place in cyberspace, you are not necessarily grounded.
Mm-hmm.
I notice the more time I spend on the internet, the more, anxious I become. So I think modulating that and having a grounding tool while you're out there in cyberspace, like holding a crystal or any sort of earth or earth's element, having water with you, water grounds you. Even patting your dog can ground you, just to have something with you while you're out there in cyberspace.
I love that you mentioned that. I also was listening to one of my podcasts recently and I realized how much I say to guests. I love that. I love that. Um, but it's absolutely like I can't flip my computer around because I have a big desktop. But if you could see the amount of crystals across the back layer of my desk, and then my desk sits between two windows, and I have shelves over each window with all my orchids. So I personally have tons of indoor plants. Now, I'm in
Me.
North Carolina, you're in Maine. My weather's a lot different than yours.
Yeah.
But I also have so much selenite on.
Mm,
I have a piece of tourmaline there, selenite there. Underneath my computer, I have rose quartz, I have hematite, I have coral, I have another piece of selenite, I have another piece of quartz kind of points. Like I can reach that to pull it. But I just have all sorts of crystals. And then I make sure with the full moon and the new moon to take them outside, to clear them, um, to program them. But I love that you said pet your dog, because I have two dogs and I have a cat, and they're in and out of my office all day long. And I may keep dog treats in my drawer so that they come in. But it is about that, keeping your feet on the ground, keeping tools around you that help you ground,
right.
and I see that while we're talking, you've got a stone in your hand. And
Yeah.
so,
I have one blue lapis to help my throat chakra for the communication. And then I have a little piece of bumblebee jasper for solar
oh,
plexus, to give me that courage to speak my truth. And it's sometimes hard for me. I'm a little bit on the shy side, so it's sometimes hard for me to be on podcasts and things. So I keep grounded with my crystals, and I give them a purpose.
hmm. Well, let's talk about chakras for a minute, because that was a great lead in, because that was another thing that I wanted to talk about, is another kind of tool I like to use to really keep my root chakra open, grounded, connected. When I feel discombobulated, when I feel all over the place, is just doing a squat. Like
Mm-hmm.
wide-legged squat. It's malasana in yoga. You bring your your root down to the ground, you open up, and it
Mm-hmm.
allows that connection. Even if you're in an apartment, if you're like, my house is on a basement crawl area, so my house doesn't touch the ground. But I know that when I open that up, instead of just sitting at my desk, I feel that. And you can take it a step further to close your eyes, take a couple deep breaths, and visualize a cord running through your body from your crown to your root. And that energy, with each breath, you're either inhaling the earth and the energy from grounding area, or you're exhaling what you need to release into Mother Earth, because she's awesome. Like, she transmutes it. It's not like when we pollute our water system and our water's just polluted, but when we give Mother Earth our energy, she completely transmutes it into something beautiful. It's like she
Gaia
composts
is
it.
powerful. Gaia is
Mm-hmm.
very powerful. And that's the thing, is we are of earth. Earth is our source. So when we're disconnected from that, that's when we feel discombobulated. So any way that you can connect to earth, just like you have to plug your cell phone into charge, you need to plug yourself
Mm.
into the earth to charge. So like doing that deep squat and connecting to the earth, and like a central channel breathing, where you're just breathing that energy up from the earth into you, and then breathing out what no longer serves you, gives this cycle and gives Gaia a chance to release what no longer serves you, and for you to bring in her positive energy. So
Mm-hmm.
that's definitely a good piece of grounding, is connecting to earth and doing that central channel breathing.
There are so many great ways. Like, you talked about being barefoot and outside, and it definitely, with us being in January, cold months, that's a problem. And that's why I said I have so many plants in my office. I have one, two, three, four, five, six houseplants and six orchids just in my office alone.
Even
And
your
sometimes,
energy is grounded. The energy around you is grounded.
yeah, and sometimes I'm just like, can I stick my hand in the dirt? You know?
Do
And
it.
I love to garden, and that's one of the things is just touching the dirt and feeling
Yeah.
it. And so even if it's cold outside, bundling up, walking outside, even though you've got shoes on, and just kind of stomp your feet on the ground because it's
Mhm.
going to stimulate that energy. It's going to connect you to the earth. So it's a lot of, I think, intention also.
Intention is everything. Yeah, if you set your intention, energy flows where your intention goes. So your intention is probably the most powerful thing that you can set. Um, in combination with grounding, it's really powerful. And like you said, stomp your feet, get your energy moving. They joke about tree huggers, but I do actually sometimes literally hug trees because trees just have this energy to them. And if you listen, they will give you messages and they will guide you. And so will Mother Earth if you just quiet your mind and touch nature and just listen.
You say trees, and I have a funny story to share. So, Matthew, my husband, and I started dating, and he had a motorcycle, and I love motorcycles. So, I bought my own motorcycle, and at 35, 120 pounds, started riding a bike and loved it. But I was also 35. I was a mom. I was responsible. So I did not need an adrenaline rush. I just wanted the freedom of it. And so we would take trips, but we had the rule that we didn't go on highways unless we had to go on highways. And so we live in central North Carolina, and we were headed to the Outer Banks for both of our 40th birthdays. And we had to go through Raleigh, which for North Carolina is a really busy town or city. It's a city. Like most of North Carolina are towns, but it's actually a city. But if you live in New York, you're like, that's like a Providence, or something.
I'm a small town Maine girl, so I
Yeah.
get
So we drove through Raleigh, and Raleigh has like 4 lanes each side of the highway. They were under construction, so everything crisscrosses. The lines were painted, they crisscrossed. Like it was chaotic. And we had to go 2 exits on highway. Well, it's Highway 40, so people know Highway 40. And we were going to get off. Well, my husband's been riding since he was 18. It's his 40th birthday. He doesn't care about highways. He just never gets off the highway. And I'm following him. So we get on 64, which was still busy. And I'm behind him, and he's not like getting off the highway. He's not slowing down. And he's like, down the highway. I mean, we both have cruiser bikes. So it's not like
I'm
we're
so
like,
impressed you ride a motorcycle, by the way.
thank you. It was that was part of my finding myself. I sold my
I
engagement.
think
Well, I
that's so
sold my
cool.
engagement ring from my first marriage and bought myself a motorcycle. Like that was my treat.
I
So
love that. That's like empowering. It must
it
be so
was.
empowering doing that thing.
It was amazing. So now you know a little bit more about my story. That's kind of like, So we're driving on 64, and he's not slowing down. He's not stopping. We're just buzzing through. And I'm like, screw it. I'm getting off the highway. And fortunately, he could see me get off, so he was able to kind of cut back and get off that exit. Got off the exit, turned right. There was a huge church with this ginormous tree in the front yard. And
Wow.
it was this tree that had to be hundreds of years old. And, I'm not a religious person, but I'm a very spiritual person. And I
Same.
love churches because that's where everybody comes to share their spirituality. And so I love the energy of churches, whatever religion you are. And
Yeah.
so I was like, perfect. It's a church with a tree. And I literally stopped my bike, threw off my helmet as I'm walking, ripping off my steel toed boots. And I hug this tree. And I'm just standing there. And my husband walks over to me after about 30 seconds. And I'm like, do not talk to me right now. I need some tree time. And I stood in this church parking lot with no shoes on, my leather jacket, my pants, hugging this tree for a good 5 minutes because I needed that connection. And, my case was an extreme moment of like, I can't breathe because I'm so anxious. But sometimes you just need to hug a tree.
Yeah, because it grounded you, and that's impressive that you knew at that moment what you needed. So you did it. You went for it. You got called to ground, and there was that tree. I mean, that's divine timing if I've ever heard it. Here's the tree. Here's your message. Here I am to help you.
Yes.
And
And, when I got off the highway, I just wanted off the highway. But it was definitely divine that it was a church parking lot and a tree, because
yeah,
that was the universe saying, I've got your back. It's okay. Breathe.
yeah. Here
You're
you go.
safe.
Here's the tree. This is an old, powerful, knowledgeable tree. Hug away.
And that's one of the things about trees when we talk about grounding is they're so rooted. And that's one of my favorite yoga poses is tree pose, because you think about how strong their roots are. They don't necessarily go crazy deep, but they stretch out, and
Yeah,
that allows them to feel the wind, and they don't break in the wind. They move, they flow, they bend because they're rooted.
right. The trees are, yeah, trees are so symbolic for me too. That and they're all connected, just like
Mm,
we're all connected. Under the earth, they're probably holding hands with their roots under
I
the
love
earth,
that.
and they're grounded so that when the wind and turbulence comes, they can move, but they don't break. They support each other. So yeah, I actually even have a tree tattoo. I love trees.
The visual you just gave me of trees holding hands is so beautiful. Like it literally wants to bring tears to my eyes, because I was in
Oh,
Utah a couple years ago, and there is, and I totally don't remember the name of it, but there's that white barked tree that is one root system, and they all connect to each other. So it's not like they've grown together, but they started and spread out. And we were horseback riding through one of those forests, and it was so neat to think about, as you say, we're all connected, and
mhm.
they're all connected, and we're connected to them. I mean, it's so, in our bonus episode, we're going to talk about Gabby Bernstein's uh, The Universe Has Your Back. But you don't need to read a book to know the universe has your back. Just look
Yeah.
around you at the beauty that the universe has given you.
Yeah, where Earth is definitely a beautiful place to be. They say it's one of the hardest places to be, but also the most beautiful place to be.
I like that. We had and I think it was in November, I released an episode with a gal, Aowen Levine, and she is in New York. And so I find it fascinating, people who live in the city, because I'm total suburb, North Carolina, back of a neighborhood, dead end street. There's a row of houses behind me and then a horse field.
Yeah.
So there's a lot around us. And then I have a lot of people I know in New York, and I think how sad for them. They can't garden. And
Yeah, I know. I'm just the same mindset as you, but
well,
yeah,
Awen was telling me that she has a co-op garden that she belongs to in New York, and it's a couple blocks away. And she has I think she said like a 10 by 12 plot that
yeah,
she gets to grow plants in, and flowers. And I thought that was so neat, because talking about how we're all connected, she said there's people who, I think she said it was like 45 plots. And there were a couple older women who come, it takes them 2 hours by bus and train to get to the garden.
it's be a
And
powerful spot.
yeah, it's really neat that they're connected, and people, she just happens to be 2 blocks away. But the fact that you can come that far to find your grounding source, to find your connection with earth in a
Mhm.
concrete city, it's really kind of cool.
Yeah, and that's the thing. There's ways to ground no matter where you are. Earth
Hmm.
is all around us. Like we have crystals here. You don't need anything special to ground. You just need to be connected and plugged in and let the earth recharge you. So that's amazing that she was able to find that and also recognize that she needed it.
Hmm.
Sometimes recognizing that you're not grounded is hard too because you're all over the place, you're stressed, you got the weight of the world on your chest and you're not thinking as clearly because you're ungrounded. But to actually identify that you're in that place, like, oh, wait a minute, I think I need some grounding. I'm all over the place here. And then to just set an intention to take a little time to ground and then move on with your day. So I struggle with that too, is, I've got 10 million things to do. I don't want to stop for a minute. I want to get it all done. But I'm not going to be my best self and do my best work unless I take that moment for myself and ground and pause.
Mm.
So,
I think that's like everything we've talked about so far really fits that definition of grounding, where grounding allows you to be more authentically in your body in the present moment and receive nourishing energy. Because when we are present, we feel that nourishing energy. We're able to be in our bodies. And that's one of the things that yoga really does for me, is that it puts me here, not over there, not on my to-do list. Like you said, when you get so many things to do and you're like, I want to get it done, I want to move forward, I want to do this. And what I found with developing Grounding Journeys podcast and where I plan to take it in 2021, because it's so been shown to me, I struggle between finding that balance of like, oh, here's my desires, this is how I'm going to get there, or allowing it to organically unfold. We have that, there's that African proverb. I'm looking at my bulletin board because I have so many up there. While you pray, move your feet. And so it's finding that balance of knowing that I'm authentically here, that I'm in the present moment, and I'm open to that nourishing energy. And that's why I love yoga so much, because you get on your mat and you try to do half moon or tree or one of those balancing poses, and you're not here. You're on your butt on your mat instead of on one
of
leg.
course, you to be present. And part of Universe Has Your Back with Gabby Bernstein, she says your point of power is in the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
So you have no control over the next few moments, and the past few moments are gone. Your power is right in this present moment. So ground into this present moment, be in alignment with love and joy, and there's your power. And I'm big into the law of attraction too, to be present, grounded, and what you put out there is going to come back to you. So it is powerful to stay grounded. Try to keep a positive mindset, and that's not to say, light washing. It's just to say, to have a positive mindset is, if you're going through something difficult, you can always change your perspective. Like, rather
Mm.
than looking at it from a fearful lens, try to look at it from a lens of fear. I mean, a lens of love, sorry. Um, yeah, I lost my train of thought, but
Well, I think you're absolutely right in trying to reframe and coming through 2020. And, I really hate to just keep talking about the 2020 and all that it was, but it's so relevant in our evolution, in our up leveling, because one of the things that I believe 2020 was for all of us, for mankind, was to learn to be present, to learn not to buy into the fear and not
yeah.
to overthink, because I know for me, working and being a mom, trying to be present for Kevin when he was younger, trying not to miss those moments. And, it's funny, I'm such a better dog owner than I am, when my son was, because he's 20 now. And so my dog, because I've really been working on focus or present, she'll walk in and kind of nudge me. And I stop what I'm doing and I love on her and I pet her for a minute and I give her an almond and then I go back to what I'm doing. And I think that's so much of what 2020 was, that sometimes it is hard to change our perspective. It is hard to think positive, but that's when you just focus on the moment. Don't think
Hmm.
about tomorrow. Don't think about yesterday. Just think about now.
And to change it to, when you're surrounded by all this negativity, like we were this year, um, you know, like I said, the foundation just got taken out from under our feet. So it's hard to stay positive.
For
But
sure.
hey, if you go into the mindset more of curiosity, then it automatically changes your energy to a more positive vibration. So, if something crappy is happening and you're like, oh, this really stinks, blah, blah, blah. If you switch into curiosity, like, okay, why is this happening? Then that reframes your energy to start headed towards a more positive frame of thought. Like one thought leads to another thought. So let that be your pivot. Change it to curiosity. Okay, why is this crappy thing happening? And then just reach for the next best feeling thought, the next best feeling thought, and then you're off more into the right direction rather than continuing to spiral onto the negative side of things.
That's a
And
great way to frame it. I love that you
like a
say,
pivot. I think Esther Hicks calls that like a pivot. Have a pivot moment. So ground into the present moment, um, and have a pivot. And
what?
you recognize that you're in alignment with this negative energy and you don't like it. Ground in and pivot. Go into curiosity, um, and let that curiosity lead to the next best thought, and so on. So it changes your attraction from the negative to the positive.
I think that's a great way to say it, because so often we do hear change your thinking, think positive, don't hold on to the negative. And when you're deep in the negative, it's
Hard to do.
hard
Yeah.
thinking, and that kind of goes back to us talking when we really first started talking about how you ground. When I went into this last 3-year cycle for me of up leveling, the first couple weeks may have been me not realize what happened, but at some point I was like, why is this happening? What am I learning from it? Where am I going?
Switched your vibration to a more positive one, a
Right.
higher.
And that allowed me to be like, oh, okay, so it's going to be a little rocky for the next 3 years. It's not anything worse than I've been through. Like, I can do this.
So that's acceptance is also a higher vibrational feeling. So one leads to the next, and you increase your vibration as you go along.
I think that's so great. Thank you so much for sharing that, because I think that using curiosity and acceptance can really help some people who are like, I don't know how to think positive. Like, this is
Yeah.
rough. And that's a great, simple starting point for people to start to reframe their thoughts, to start to kind of change what they're thinking, and to make it not feel like, oh, I have to be happy. I have to think positive. Like, it's just a,
You can't make yourself feel something. You
mhm.
can say affirmations all you want, and I love affirmations, but if the feeling is not with the affirmation, it's not as powerful.
Absolutely. I love, I'm a big Danielle Laportier fan. And in the Desire Map, I read that actually this time last year. One of the things she says is, if you don't believe in affirmation, if you don't truly feel it, because I'm the girl who I have a huge mirror that's the whole size of my sink, and I just had it covered in sticky notes, different
Mm-hmm.
colored notes, different color paper, like I made it pretty. And I had so many affirmations, and every morning I would sit there with my hand on my heart and I would read each one with intention. But if you don't believe them, if you don't feel them, as she says in the Desire Map, then your soul, your psyche, whatever word you want to use, feels you're lying to yourself. And then it builds trust issues. And we all have trust issues with ourselves, with others.
You can't fool your higher self. You
Yes.
can't. Your higher self has the whole picture. We don't. We have little snippets. We have a veil over our eyes down here, but our higher self knows who we really are, and if we really do, feel what it is that we're saying.
When I see in your hand you have your cards, are those Wayne Dyer cards?
Oh no, I wanted to show you. These are my Louise Hay
Okay.
cards. I love Wayne Dyer too. So I do love affirmations, and they do help me, especially if I need a pivot moment. I can just pick one, um, and kind of contemplate on it. So I definitely love affirmations. I just want to make sure that we put the feeling behind it as well, to not
Mhm.
just say it, but to figure out how it resonates with you and attach, some authentic emotion to it.
Well, and so what I used to do is I just had all these affirmations like, I'm happy, healthy, and moving forward. I'm, this or that. And sometimes when we just write it because that's what we want to have, then it's more trying to manifest it than an affirmation. And I thought you had the Wayne Dyer, because Wayne Dyers are in a square box like that, and you're small on my computer screen. But I'm sure that Louise Hay's are similar to Wayne Dyers. What they have on the backside is kind of it's your pivot moment, because it
Yeah,
gives you a question and asks you something. It helps you reframe instead of just saying, I'm happy and healthy. I may have a
exactly.
really bad cold. That's not going to make my cold go away.
Exactly.
And that's what I think the difference with affirmation cards versus just having an affirmation.
Right.
So I invite our listeners to check out Wayne Dyer, to check out Louise Hay, to read Desire Map, because it definitely, when I read what she has to say in Desire Map, it totally changed how I did affirmations, how I talked about them to myself, because it definitely, you have to feel it, you have to believe it, you have
Has
to
to
be
resonate. Yeah, it needs to resonate.
it. Well, so I feel like I could talk to you forever, and I'm so excited that we've gotten to talk. Because I know we're kind of getting towards the end of our time, I want to touch back on the definition of grounding. And one of the parts, the last part, was grounding allows you to use your body to use all your talents and gifts, know their values in the world, and give birth to your vision and goals. And I think that's so amazing, because for me, being grounded, I and I named Grounding Journey, the podcast, Grounding instead of Grounded, because grounding is a process. Like, we have to continually work for it. We have to continually achieve it. And I know for me, when I started the podcast, because I was still knee deep in my 3 years, well, I was coming to the end of it, but it felt knee deep. Um, I wouldn't say that I was grounded. I was just grounding. And
Hmm.
so I love that being there, it does allow us to use our body and our talents. I've definitely expanded through my yoga, through the podcast, through all those things. And you're expanding right now. So when we were talking about knowing your values, giving birth to your visions and goals, so you're Reiki, you're a healer. Are you practicing any of that? Are you offering it? What are you doing with it? How do you use that?
My plan is I'm in the phase right now of building up my, I call it my healing tote bag of skills. Uh,
Nice.
I'm a Reiki healer. I do EFT tapping.
Okay.
Um, just signed up for a course in cupping, crystal Reiki, and I also have aspirations for Qigong. I've just discovered
Oh.
Qigong, and it so far, I don't want to call it life changing, but I think it's kind of life changing.
Mm.
For me, it brings meditation to the next level. It's a moving meditation almost, and building your chi and building your energy. And I don't know a ton about it yet, but I'm really feeling called to it. So in the future, I would love to be a Qigong trainer, or I'd love to get a community of women together just to empower each other and combine all of our knowledge and talents to help each other grow. Um, maybe starting with like Qigong. So that's the journey I'm on. And I'm very much on the tip of it. I'm starting with grounding practice and getting that concept out there a little bit more, with my beach stone mats.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so I feel called to something greater, and I believe that my grounding mats are gonna help me get there.
Well, and yay you for exploring many different avenues, feeling into what works for you. I've definitely in my time, um, I have explored and decided some things were not my avenue and some things were.
And
And
that's why
like,
you gotta try different things. And that's part
yes,
of not wanting to be in a box is, you know, there's so many different things, so many alternative healing things, and so many things to explore that you don't know what resonates or what your gifts will apply to until you try these different things. So I'm feeling called to Qigong right now. and crystal Reiki and all these different things that in the point in my life where I do need to explore these different things and find out what my gifts are and how I can be the best healer. Um, yeah, there's so many fun things out there. I just like to experience and learn and have fun.
I love that, Lisa. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I know that the audience is going to want to find you because we actually became friends on Instagram just because of like interest and have kind of been commenting and back and forth on quotes for a while. And that's, you're actually the first guest that I've had who I'm friends with on Instagram. And I love that because I've been using people through podcasting networks, and one of the things I really want to do is start inviting more listeners onto the podcast to have the conversations because they're the ones who are on this journey with me. So, little plug, if you're listening and you would like to be a guest, please, please, please email me at connect@groundingjourney.com because I would love to have you on. But Lisa, people are going to want to find you. They're going to want to find out about your mats. They're going to want to watch your journey. So obviously we're friends on Instagram, so I know you're there, but where's the best way for people to find you?
Instagram is great at Gaia's Ground. My website is www.gaiasground.com. But I will get back to you whether it's social media or through my website. I would love to hear from anybody, even if you want to chat about grounding or if you want me to make you a custom beach stone mat, I can do that. I'd love to speak with fellow healers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm just really getting my feelers out there and growing as a light worker. And I love to just connect to people. So anybody who wants to message me, I welcome it.
That's exactly what this whole podcast is about. It's just those conversations you've been seeking. So I'm so
Right.
glad that you were here to talk. I'm so glad that we got to connect. And we're going to do a bonus episode that we'll release in a couple of days about The Universe Has Your Back with Gabby Bernstein. So be sure you look out for that. But Lisa, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to start the new year with you and talk and just like I feel like I've had a smile on my face the whole conversation.
Me too. You're a pleasure to talk to. Thank you so much for having me on. I've really enjoyed it. And I look for these deeper conversations as well. So I appreciate your podcast.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening today. If you're seeking deeper conversations, I invite you to visit my website at groundingjourney.com or subscribe to my podcast.